Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Facebook Live event from the Avient App Lab. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about discharge inks, specifically the Aquarius Discharge colors. We'll do some live printing in a moment. First, I'm going to show you, we're going to kind of bring up our new logo on black shirts, and we actually printed a few on some mixed shirts so you can see the differences in the discharge. I'm also going to just go over exactly what we're printing today. So here's the setup. Discharge and soft base is the best way to try to get into water-based printing. So we'd like for you, if you've never printed water-based before, is to try these two bases out first. First of all, they hardly ever dry out. You really have to try hard to make them dry out. We aren't using any flashes, so the heat is less of a problem. We're using 160 meshes direct to garment. We're going from dark to light colors on the press, wet on wet. So a lot of that extra work that usually is associated with water-based is taken out of the picture. Obviously, you want to use a water-resistant emulsion when you're creating your screens. You want to tape them well, especially with soft base. You want to make sure your registration marks are taped well or filled in. I prefer using a pre-registration system to make sure my job is lined up correctly and I'm not having to retape and untape my registration marks because, hey, you know, they can give you problems later on down the road. When I do tape off my marks, I do a long strip underneath the registration mark to allow any ink that might come through, kind of has to run down that piece of tape before it shows its ugly head. But for the most part, I like to lock them out, tape them over, and try to keep them from running during the job. Now, what we want to do right here, I'm going to walk out. Let me get off of this, and we're going to bring in Kevin's. So Kevin is out there near the press. I want to minimize myself, and I'll see you in a minute. Hello, all. All right, so the first step is to mix your inks, obviously. All of our mixes are in the IMS3 software. And for discharge, it's a little different than soft base. Obviously, soft base is just like any other pigment and base. You put the base down, and you mix your colors with pigments, and you stir it, and it's ready to go. And it has a shelf life for as long as you keeping the lids on the shelves. You have a great shelf life. But discharge base is a little different. You bring in, it's a discharge base instead of a soft base. You do everything else the same. Like we got a little bit of premix here. And I am mixing the base with pigment. So you get your pigments in there. And you're creating your color. So once you get the color, this is not activated. This color we're doing on the next job. Get a nice mix. And what I like to do now is I just double check my weight. So I'm getting an empty can up there. I've got 432.9, basically 433. 432.9 times 0.06. So I need 25.9 grams of activator. I have right here. I use an old coffee mate. Oops. So the main thing you want to do is stir this in, get it wet. You don't want to stir too vigorously at first. But you definitely want to get this all mixed in. I'm not going crazy with it. You notice I didn't mix it too hard. What I want to do is close this lid on this and leave it for like 15 minutes before I stir it again and put it in the press. Now this is my water. This is all about water, so this cleans up with water. We're going to start the run. As you can see, it's a dark to light. So we're starting flood. Single stroke. We're using 60-90-60 squeegees and 45 pounds of pressure. And you notice that flood is very thick. It's not digging into the image area. We've got our new logo colors for Avient. Gray, light blue, and a green, which is, let's see, 2727C blue and 61C green. Very nice. So Discharge needs to be on a 100% cotton garment. If you have a blend or a tri-blend that's mostly cotton, it's still going to give you a great effect. You might not necessarily have a good clean print. But here you can see not a lot of color. Actually, it looks better on video than it does on in real life here. A little bit of a light, but it's pretty dull compared to what you would see in plastisol at this point. Notice there's no flashing. We don't want any flashing. Wet on wet. And you can see the offload. I'm gonna run to the office. Kevin, you keep going. As you can see, we're doing loading on the belt. Still very dull. And we're running it through the oven. We're getting the actual ink film temperature of about 330. I think 325 at 2 minutes or 320 at 2 minutes does a good job too. And one word of warning, you can get some great dischargeability out of the shirt. That doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% cured. We want to make sure we're staying in the oven 1:30 to 2 minutes. That gives it a full cure. And so it gives better washability. The shirts will look the same, but the wash won't do so well if it's under cured. And you can see a much brighter color. We got the nice gray Avient and the true colors, 361 and the 2727C. Now these are on shirts we chose earlier. So Kevin, show us the shirts that we ran earlier when we made our decision. So here's a very responses. So these are all 100% cotton. One of them is recycled. And you can see if you get really close to that A on there, you see how it didn't quite discharge all the way through. Some of the recycled fabric was not dischargeable. So, I mean, you definitely need to test every shirt you're going to try to use in a discharge. It has to have dischargeable dyes in there. So here's a much better one. Then we have all these are different fabrics, different cottons, but they're all 100% cotton black. And I believe one of these last two are the ones we chose. I believe that one he just showed is the one we chose. It's much better than the rest of them. And if you, hey, Kevin, let's go over to where the color shirts are. So, like I said earlier, I mean, if you have a blend, you'd be surprised sometimes. Sometimes the only thing dyed on the cotton, I mean, on the shirt is the cotton, and the other blends are white. Sometimes you get a really good discharge off a tri-blend. Sometimes not so good, as you can see there. So if some of the lycra or the polyester is dyed black, you're going to have some odd responses. Not to say it's not good responses, because really they all are giving a nice look, and all of them are very, very, very soft. Hey, Kevin, kind of rub one of those. Now here's a red. Red is traditionally not good, and you can see why. I mean, not good on a tri-blend recycle. But a red 100% cotton from certain manufacturers come out super nice. So here's one we decided to run today, and it is soft as soft can be. Sometimes people like to do a double stroke on press, and I think it really doesn't gain anything once you're running. It only gains kind of a harsh feel on the fabric. Yeah, we have some statements here. Mixed discharge, let it set for 10 minutes. We're introducing it into screen. That is true. You let it 10. Sometimes I push it to 15, and then when it's ready to go in the screen, I'll do a vigorous mix before I pour it into the screen. What you're doing there is you're making the powder dissolve more, and then when you stir it, it gives a better dispense. It dispenses better into the full film of the ink. We use 60-90-60. Someone asked what squeegees we're using. Statement from Lance. Thank you, Lance. We know, great open time. That's a good point. We test this vigorously and make sure that we're staying open. That's why this is such a great ink to try out if you're a first-time water-based printer, because you get some great effect, especially if you pick the right fabric, and you're able to run this. When we do training here, we'll run it for a little while, and then we'll flood up on the image, and we'll leave it for 30, 40, sometimes an hour. We've been at customers where we actually left it flooded up during a launch. We came back 2 hours later, and it struck off on the first strike. Now, obviously, this might vary in different atmospheres. Like if you're in Vegas or in Phoenix, it might take maybe 5 strokes, get it going again. Just throw on some scrap garments, get it going, and then start running again when you're back from launch. At night, you do have to pull it out if you're going to be gone all night, and wipe out the image area. If you are breaking for more than 30, 40 minutes, just to be safe, you can strike back and just wash the image area out. Leave the image clean as you're gone. And when you come back, it'd be a very easy startup. Here's a great catch 'em on mustard PCs. That's funny, but I wanted to pull you up because the squeeze bottles aren't included, but it's something you can buy and put your PCs in. Makes it so much easier to dispense into your mixing. Let's see, is there any other? Let me see. Oh yeah, so here's we do a lot of discharge prints here. Print looks really good. The main problem is discharge. There are small lints when you have huge print designs, and you have no idea to avoid the problems like that. Well, if you have a particularly a shirt with a lot of fabrics in it, a lot of strings and things like that, obviously you got to watch for that. We in the old days, we used to use a smoothing screen, only we would put spray on the bottom of it. It would lift all that off. We're very careful loading it, make sure there's no strings, no fuzz balls, and so on. Putting a little, touching it up, running it through the oven again is very difficult to do because you will have a difference in color. You might be able to get through with it, by with it. Secondly, if you have pinholes in different areas of your shirt, you can't spray it out. You have to either cover it up. Some people use a Sharpie. That doesn't always work when you have, a particularly dark garment. But you can kind of touch that up. Main thing is you got to really watch your screens. You got to take care of your screens. In this case, someone's asking what emulsion. We don't really recommend any particular emulsion. It's got to be water resistant. This particular case, we're using some chromoline. That works very well. I would say on the emulsion front, I always say this: call your manufacturer, call the people that you're buying your emulsion from presently, and have them tell you what they recommend. If you're going into discharge, it can be a little more aggressive than regular soft base or even high solids. So I recommend using the emulsion they recommend and follow their instructions to the letter. Some people have asked, they're asking me, about the stroke. So in most water-based companies will tell you to double stroke everything. On our soft base and our discharge base, we say one flood, one stroke, and just keep it going. Everything else is overkill. As far as the artwork, there are some cases you can use our discharge white, and a lot of times I like to base it back with discharge base, maybe 50-50 or 80% white, 20% base, and use it as an underprint for plastisol or high solids water base. It works very well. You're able to hit color very nicely. Some of we visited Denver Print House, and they were doing exactly that on their run while we were interviewing them. Angles. Which angles do the squeegees have? We tend to stay around 10 to 15 degrees. Every once in a while, it's like if we're having trouble filling in, like if it's a really strange fabric, sometimes you kick it out, but we do not want to put that much ink down. We want to drive it into the garment slightly with a 45 pounds of pressure. That way it goes into the fabric without going through the fabric. If you start printing palettes, if you start noticing that this is on the palette, you have too much pressure on it. Take it off. Let's get a good clean print. The higher the angle, as in like 10 degrees, the cleaner that edge will be, and basically you're cleaning off screens. So I'm running out of questions here. We're at almost 20 minutes, so I appreciate everybody's help here. Thank you for sending the questions. We will continue to answer questions. Just put it in the comments, and we'll stay on it all day, all week if necessary. So if you have any questions, put it in the comments. We'll get back to you. We sure appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. Signing out.